Welcome to Homeschooling with Classic Stories. This is week 3, so I've taken the book cover off, I've taken the jacket off, so let's go ahead and get started with your copy of Beatrix Potter, The Complete Tales. So, the first thing we need to do is review the map. So when we started all of this, we were down with Peter Rabbit and Mr. McGregor in his garden. Then we went all the way up to Squirrel Nutkin for week 2. And now we've come all the way to the bottom for the Tailor of Gloucester. If you're having trouble pronouncing this word, me too. I am not English. So you'll notice that it is just Glau, so go to the O, and then pretend you can't see the rest of the word, and then stir, Gloucester. So I did have to look that up. That is not something in my common knowledge, so don't feel bad. I was not aware of that one either. So what you need to do to start with is we are referring to the compass. Again, you'll want to remind your child north, east, south, and west. And so we'll start over here. If you want to go ahead and start referring to the map as the southeast corner, then we took the road up all the way to the north where we met with Squirrel Nutkin and he visited old Mr. Brown. And then we're going to travel the road directly south and we're going to end up sort of towards the southwest to go to Gloucester. So do make sure that you review the map. This is also a really good time if you want to find out more about Gloucester. It is a real place, obviously, in England, and so you can take out Google Maps and have a look at it for yourself. If you're using the same book that I am, we are on page 39 for today. You'll also notice then, as soon as you turn to the book, that these are really different. So just as a comparison, if you weren't following along, notice how nice and cute and short each of the pages are meant to be, because these are meant to be small little books that were divided up all the way to this. This is sort of your warning that this story is going to be consuming, is a good way to say it. And I'm going to also go ahead and point out to you, look at all these words that you probably don't know. I mean, I can say pompadour, but I don't really know that I know what it is. But so for these words, this is a really great one because it has a lot of tailor sewing, I guess, words. Or just general English-based words, as English as in England words, if you are not from England. Words that are probably unfamiliar to you. And so if you want to preview this one by reading the story fully yourself, this is the first one that I would recommend that you really do that with, because while it's great for your child to see you, learning things and reading things and acquiring knowledge yourself through the use of the internet, that's a great skill for them to see you use. There are so many of these words that watching you stop and look up words every, sentence can be frustrating. So you'll want to preview this one. Even if you are a very strong reader, even if you read a lot of, Jane Austen, it's not really going to help as much as you think it is. So here we go. This one is very heavy of a story, as in it has a lot of words. So I highly recommend that before you start, that you gather some items. This is a story about a tailor. It's also a story that will feel very familiar to you, even if you've never read this story, which I think is a little weird. I think we probably see snippets of this story in a lot of other stories. So the first thing that I recommend that you gather is a jacket of some sort. If your child has a jacket, or if you have a business coat in your house, that's really going to be the best of the items that you could gather. If you don't have like a business style jacket, then I recommend that you just take out like a nice looking pea coat, like a winter jacket of some sort, so that you can kind of talk about the different items and layers of it, because that's going to be surprisingly important to the story. I do recommend that while you're doing this story, you let your child do other things. A lot of parents encourage their child to sit and read together, sitting on the couch or a chair next to them while they read. This story is lengthy, and I also like for my child to sit and look at the pictures and stuff with me, but this one is a bit much. So Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you'll need is the jacket. So you'll read through about all of this. While this is going on, let your child examine the jacket. Let your child put on the jacket. If you have a sewing box at your house, maybe take out the things that you feel are unsafe. Let your child have a play with that while you're reading. If you have spare pieces of fabric, this is a great time to play with those things. But this is a lot of sewing-based language right here at the beginning, all the way down to where the tailor needs to go out. And so he sends his cat, Simpkin, on a journey. So this is where things start to get a little bit odd, because the story feels realistic up until this point. It's very heavy on sewing. And then all of a sudden we have a cat who is basically this man's servant, which is also odd, as we know cats don't act that way. But somehow he's made this cat his servant, and the cat is doing several various chores. So we see that the cat is catching mice, which is relatively normal for cats, but he's catching mice. And where is he catching them? He is catching them under teacups. This will be important later on. So if your child is playing on the floor with sewing stuff or jackets, make sure they have a pause and take a look at this cat who is trapping things under a teacup. This is also a really good time for you to get a teacup. And do not pick a teacup that could break, because they will need to tap on the teacup in a moment. So this is a really good time for you to grab a teacup for your child to have a look at. And if your child wants to play along with Simpkin and pretend to trap mice, so be it. All right. So the tailor comes back. He's exhausted, yada, yada. There's not really a lot here. But then we have our first of the tip, tap, tip, tap, tip, tap, tip. You can have your child act that out as you read it. It is, of course, the mice that are trapped underneath the cup. So have your child hold the cup upside down and tap on it with their fingers, or they can use some sort of other item. So that's a good thing to do in this section. So tapping, you see it happen several times. And so you'll have lots of participation in this section. You might also want to point out 1 in 20 buttonholes of cherry colored twists, 1 in 20 buttonholes, so 21. We'll probably, if you have buttons in your sewing kit, looking at 21 buttons would be fantastic, but we'll probably have a bit of a look at that later on in the week. So again, more tip tapping, which is nice because it kind of carries you through some of the drudgery. The mice get let out by the tailor, and Simpkin gets sent out. Simpkin, who was sent out for various items, including a twist. I don't really know what a twist is. Some sort of embroidery item, I suppose. Sort of, I guess, hides it from the tailor because he's mad that his mice were taken. You can address that the cat has come back and is wearing a coat. And so this is where the cat discovers that his mouse is gone and feels angry, and so hides the twist from the tailor. And you can kind of talk about that. Is that a nice thing to do? He was mad about it. What could you do? What do you do when you're mad about something that someone has done? What could they have said to talk about it? And then the tailor gets sick. All right. So the tailor gets sick. The mice get to work. I'm not going to pretend to you that a lot happens in this story. This story can be summed up pretty fast. It's really just reading through it that is the issue. So if your child goes back to playing with your sewing box, or with a jacket or whatnot on the floor, or wants to wander around the room still tapping on the teacup, maybe just let that go for this particular story. As far as the pictures themselves, what is the mouse doing? He's threading a needle. Being able to use words like threading a needle is important as we're talking about sewing in this one. And then we see Simpkin go outside, and what is the weather like? It's snowing. Oh no, he doesn't have a jacket. And if you want to call back to him coming inside with his jacket on before, you can talk about that. Why are jackets important since you have a jacket out and it's winter? Even if it's not winter where you live, it is important to talk about appropriate clothing in weather, as that is a great pre-K skill. Okay. All right, then the mice sort of start helping and making the pieces. Again, if you want to talk about the pieces in reference to the jacket that you've pulled out, that's great. They start singing and sort of a little bit taunting Simkin, but, you know, I guess that's how the mice are in the story. And then in each of these pictures, thankfully we have more pictures and less words. You see them singing, but then you can talk about what are the mice doing in each of these pictures, and how many mice are there in each of these pictures. So we do start to get some things that can happen. We do see that the cat feels guilty in the story for hiding the twist because he was mad at the man, and so as recompense, he brings the twist to the old man and brings him some tea, the old man being sick. If you want to talk about this story being set at Christmas, if you're a family that celebrates Christmas or has that in your part of the world, you could also talk about Christmas happening at this point and sort of the Christmas miracle of Simkin deciding to be kind when he was not before. We're almost to the end, even though this is a lot of words. You can notice some of the pictures if you would like. My son is not terribly interested in pictures of scenery, but and then finally, what is this in the picture? The jacket has been made by the mice. The old man is so happy to find it. This is a really good time to talk about presents. The mice have given him a present of sorts. What's something nice that someone has done for you without you asking them? What is something nice you could do for someone else would be a really good one, focusing on kindness this week and doing good works for others without being asked, just seeing their need and choosing to do so. We see the mice leave a little note with the twist, which is pretty cute. If you want to have your child leave a small note for someone, this is a really good callback to this story as part of being kind this week and doing kind things for others. Just have them write out a little small note or draw a little picture if your child would rather do that, and then attach it somewhere where a family member or friend or whomever might find it. And so that is sort of it for the story. The only thing that I would strongly recommend for this story is gathering up supplies to entertain your child while you read, as opposed to some of the other stories where you want to read with your child. Because this one is a perfectly fine story, but is a bit of a slog. So perhaps be prepared to deal with that. If you want to break it into 2 stories, that might be advisable for this one as well. That is it for this week. I will see you later on in the week to talk about the activities that we did to go along with this story. Have a nice week.